Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and we're going to jump right into another legal issue when we're talking about religious freedom and the right to free speech. So I want to welcome onto the show Christopher Dodson. Welcome, Christopher.
Thanks for having me.
He is the executive director of the North Dakota Catholic Conference, and he came out with a letter that suddenly is all hell is breaking loose. Tell me about the letter and why it was printed or published.
Well, actually, it's a second letter in a sense. This is the letter you're referring to was just sent to parents at Catholic high schools. But the North Dakota Catholic Conference, on behalf of the bishops, wrote a letter back in October to the University of North Dakota expressing our concerns about a proposed gender inclusion policy that the university was considering. We sent it October 25th. We never received a response. I know that some legislators met with university officials in the meantime, and they did not give me the impression when they reported back to me that the university was going to change its policy, even though this is a draft. And then the bishops decided, well, as parents and students are deciding what to do with their seniors, making decisions for their first year in college, we need to let parents know that this could be happening at the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks. So on behalf of the bishops, I drafted a letter to be shared with Catholic high school parents, and that has got everyone's attention.
Now, of course, and you said in your letter that you think everybody needs to be respected. We are 100% against bullying, fairness. But what are the concerns that you laid out in the letter?
That's correct. The proposal goes much beyond just treating people with respect and creating a safe environment. I mean, everybody deserves that. One, it adopts an ideology about gender, which is just that, an ideology. It's a man-made idea that gender is not binary, and then imposes it on the entire campus. And it imposes it not just on staff and faculty, but the students, student clubs, and even visitors to campus. Now, it may be one thing for the university to have a different position on gender, but this proposal infringes on people's free speech and religious rights, even the rights of student clubs, which is contrary to the Constitution. It's contrary to state law. So it was primarily free speech and religious liberty issues that we brought up in the letter in October.
Right, because nobody could even ask. Like, you couldn't even know the gender of your roommates. You're not allowed to ask,
Right.
and you could possibly be kicked out of the university the way the draft policy was written. You never
Right.
did hear back from them. So I saw the letter. You had 3 names, including the president, to write to. So I emailed them, and I heard back right away from them. And they told me that this was just a draft statement, and I forwarded that information to you because they said, well, Christopher has some things wrong. And do you want to talk about
Well,
what they said you had wrong and what?
let's add another point here, and that is the issue
Okay.
about housing. It wasn't in our initial letter, but we reviewed it and reviewed that proposal over and over again. We sent it to independent people to review, and we kept coming up with the same conclusion, and that is a person would be assigned student housing according to their expressed gender and not their biological sex. And it is prohibited for a student to inquire about another person's true biological sex. And so it seems as though somebody could be assigned against their knowledge, someone of the opposite biological sex, as a roommate. And so we raised that in the second letter, the one that went to the Catholic parents. And then, you shared their response today saying, well, that's not true, it wouldn't happen. Well, we got to go by what the proposal says, and I don't know any other way to read it. It clearly says that housing will be assigned according to one's expressed gender, and students cannot inquire about someone's true biological sex. how do you get around that? Freshmen are required to live in student housing at University of North Dakota. You will be assigned somebody if you don't arrange, know somebody and request it and get that approved. And with that policy, how do you deal with that situation? And parents should be aware of that.
What was the situation? I'm sorry, go ahead. What was the situation prior to this? Do they have separate housing so that it's not an issue? Because they're saying, the email I got back is that we're going to defend and protect students' legal rights. So legally, I suppose you could say, well, they don't have to tell people what their gender is. I don't know if there's any legal protection for that. But what were they doing previous to this, formulating this policy?
Well, we know they had a policy already on dealing with name change and gender change administratively. It's on their website. So this policy wasn't needed for that. We can assume, I'll take the principle that we have in legislation. That is, when a legislature acts, it's presumed not to engage in an idle act. They're meant to change a policy here. What's surprising here is courts have already found that requiring students and faculty to use specific pronouns merely because they're requested by someone else violates free speech rights. But apparently the university wants to change that. And the policy specifically says that it applies to student organizations, which would be religious organizations, Catholic organizations, Christian organizations that have or believe and recognize that gender is truly binary. So it's a clear infringement upon free speech and religious rights. And why they wanted to go ahead in that direction is beyond me. And again, we never got a response as to why.
Can you, maybe this isn't something you can answer, but I asked our last guest the same thing. Do you know, like, who is pushing all this? Is it the students? Is it the faculty? Is it the administration? Is it the big donors to the college? I mean, who's behind all of this? Do you have any information on that?
Well, we had a bill last session we finally got passed to protect student rights, like for student clubs, to be able to choose their own leaders. We faced constant opposition from the higher ed system on that. It appears to me that this is a very opaque system where it's difficult to find out who's making the decisions, but that there is a group that is pursuing an agenda that not only accepts these ideas of gender ideology and stuff, but thinks that they have a right to infringe upon the religious and free speech rights of their faculty, staff, and students.
Right. And now, is this policy to be implemented this coming fall then? Is that what they're working toward?
The proposal only says that when it was proposed and that it wouldn't be reviewed again for 3 years. But then now they're calling it a draft, and it's no longer on their website. But we have to assume until we see something different that this is the policy they're going with.
And the president of the university did tell me that there's going to be a press conference on Friday. So we will hear more, and I have to believe, Christopher, that this letter is maybe going to make a difference because they are hearing from people. If somebody wants to read the letter, where would they go to find it?
The letter and all the relevant information is on the North Dakota Catholic website now. That's ndcatholic.org. And you'll find a link there. And I've tried to put up all the relevant information because parents, alumni, citizens, I mean, this is a taxpayer-funded institution. They're concerned and they want to know what's going on. And we hope that President Armacost and the university decides to do the right thing. And I guess we'll hear more on Friday.